Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. In this video, we will be looking at the features formed in the middle and lower courses of the river. Now I've decided to do the middle course and lower course together because generally speaking, most of the features that we find in the middle course, we also find them in the lower course, even though they might be a little different. It would be the same features, except, for example, the delta, which we definitely will see in the lower course. So remember that the river can be described by its long profile and its cross profile. The long profile looks at a cross section of the river from its source to its mouth. The cross profile looks at the river from one bank to another. The river can be divided into three main courses: the upper course, the middle course, and the lower course. And what we'll find is that the cross section of the river, as well as the river valley, will vary as we move from one course to another. So the upper course is narrow, but as we progress towards the lower course, the valley gets wider and wider. We can also notice that we will not really see a valley floor so much in the upper course. But as we move to the middle and the lower courses, the valley floor will be more pronounced and will get wider. Another typical feature of the middle and lower courses are the existence of meandering channels. A meander is basically a bend in the river channel. In their cross section, meanders are asymmetrical in shape. And so we can see two banks, the outside bank or the outer bank, or we also call it the outer bend, and the inside bank or the inner bend or the inside bend. All right, so there are various names that we use to describe these two banks of the meander. The outer bank is the wider bank, and the river will flow faster on that side. Now, there are a lot of explanations for the formation of meanders. One explanation is that the meanders develop in relation to pools and riffles in the channel. Pools are areas of deep water, while riffles are areas of shallow water. The existence of pools and riffles cause an irregular flow of the water. At the riffle, there is more friction as the water is shallow there, and so the river will flow more slowly there. At the pools where the water is deeper, there will be less friction, and so the river will flow faster there, and there will also be more erosion occurring there. So the river will swing from side to side, following the areas of deepest water, which we know now those areas are the pools. A helicoidal flow, which is a secondary flow, will also develop in the meander. And this flow will move material from the outside of one bend to the inside of the neighboring bend. Continuous erosion on the outer bank and deposition on the inner bank will cause the meander to develop. Now, one feature that is formed within the channel is a river cliff. River cliff forms as a result of the undercutting that takes place on the outer bank of a meander. Another feature formed within the channel is a slip-off slope, and slip-off slopes develop as a result of deposition occurring on the inner bank. So there we have our slip-off slope and our river cliff. Another feature of the middle as well as the lower course are floodplains. A floodplain is a wide, flat area of land on either side of a river channel. Floodplains are formed both from erosion as well as deposition. In its initial formation, interlocking spurs are removed by lateral erosion, and subsequently deposition of materials take place on the flat area created. So as the river meanders towards its mouth, any spur that is encountered will be removed over time by the erosion occurring on the outer bank. At the same time, deposition will occur on the inner bank. So there we have our spur being removed and deposition extending the inner bank. So once again, the spurs are removed, and as the spurs are removed, the valley floor will be widened. At the same time, the meander loops will migrate downstream to continue this job. And this is what will create that flat area on either side of the river channel. Now, During periods of heavy rain, the volume of water in the channel will increase, and so the water will rise, taking sediments with it outside of the channel. The largest materials will be deposited closest to the river channel, while the finer materials will be carried further away from the river channel. After many periods of floods, a raised river bank called a levee will be formed as a result of the larger sediments being deposited closer to the channel. The finer materials carried further away from the channel will help to build up the floodplain. Now on to the Oxbow Lake. An Oxbow Lake is a shallow crescent-shaped lake formed when a meander is abandoned by a river. When a meander becomes so pronounced that only a narrow neck of land separates the two ends, this neck can become broken during a time of flood, and the river starts to flow along a shorter, more direct route. Deposition on the inner bank seals off the ends of the meander, creating an oxbow lake. Let's look at this. So there we have our meander, and now we see the neck, the sides of the meander coming closer together, forming a small neck, and then that neck is breached. Then we have deposited material sealing off the meander. All right, so let's now talk about the braided channel. A braided channel is a type of channel that is divided into smaller subchannels by small temporary islands called eyots. During times of heavy rain, the volume of water in the channel will increase, and the river's capacity to transport large materials will also increase. During the following dry season, the volume of water will decrease, and the river's ability to transport material will also decrease. So the river will generally drop its material, and these materials will choke the river channel. The river will then need to find a way to continue on its journey. So the river will have to split into smaller channels to continue its journey. Thus, we will see smaller channels between the accumulation of sediments, and the accumulation of sediments will form the temporary islands called eyots within the river channel, the main channel. So under what conditions do braided channels form? They form when there is an abundant supply of coarse sediment from upstream. They form where the discharge varies from one season to another. That is, where there is high discharge during the wet season and low discharge during the dry season. We also will see braided channels where the gradient is a bit steeper. Now, the final feature we will look at is the delta. A delta is a low-lying plain formed from the accumulation of sediments around the river mouth when the river slows down as it enters a standing body of water, such as a lake or more commonly the sea. So where the river meets the sea will cause the river to slow down, and as it slows down, it will have less energy to transport its materials. So only the finest materials will be carried out to sea. These include fine silts and clay. Now, the clays will form an association with the salt in the water in a process called flocculation. And so the materials will become heavier and will fall to the seafloor. This will result in the formation of a layer of material called the bottom set bed. After the bottom set bed has been formed, then we will find fine sand and gravel being deposited on the bottom set, creating a steeply sloping bed known as the foreset. After the foreset bed has been formed, then even coarser sand and gravels will be deposited on the foreset to form a thin horizontal layer called the topset. So at the surface now, we will see an area of deposited materials would have been formed. The river will therefore, in order to continue its journey, will divide itself into a number of distributaries or smaller streams. In other words, braiding will also occur within the delta. Now, in some cases, the sea will have a greater impact on the shape of the delta, and in other cases, the rivers will have a stronger impact on the shape of the delta. And so we have different types of deltas that develop. Three common types of deltas that develop are cuspate delta, arcuate delta, and Bird's Foot Delta. All right, so this is where I will stop. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like, to share, and to subscribe.